Howdy, this is going to be our biggest adventure so far. We are exploring an enormous stretch of water called the Murky River, and we're going to be starting way up in the mountains where the Murky River begins and following it all the way downstream. Along the way, we're going to try as hard as we can to find the habitat of the Murky River cod. And if we're really lucky, we might find the Queensland lungfish, as the Murky River is one of the few habitats where they're found in the wild. We're going to explore all sorts of different environments along the way and check out the creatures that call these unique areas home. So come along on this adventure as we explore the Murky River. Murky River begins in the mountains behind Maleny, roughly 1.5 hours drive from Brisbane, and snakes through the countryside for almost 300 kilometres until it reaches the ocean near K'gari, otherwise known as Fraser Island. The Murky River is home to many different unique species, which I am going to try my best to document, but it won't be easy. The Murky River actually starts on a tiny little bit of private property at the beginning of that yellow line. This was a promising start to the journey, a sign telling me we are now in Murky cod territory. Obviously, I was very excited to see this at the first place we stopped at. The water was beautifully clear, only a few kilometres from the property which the Murky River originates. Here's a cool ant walking through the algae. But off to the side, I noticed what looked like a native frog. But on closer inspection, I realised this was an invasive species known as a cane toad. Cane toads are a massive problem in Australia. Amazingly, some very stupid government entomologist called Reginald Montgomery decided to introduce 105 cane toads back in 1935, which he collected from Hawaii. Hearing that they were a good way of eating native beetles that would feast on the imported sugarcane crops, which it turned out the toads aren't very interested in the cane beetles and are much more interested in eating everything else. They originate from South America and are poisonous at all stages of their life cycle, making it impossible for native animals to control the toads' numbers. Reginald bred the toads until there were 2,400 of them, then released them into the wild, causing unimaginable devastation. But actually, there were people who imagined how devastating this incredibly stupid plan would be. One of these sensible people was called Walter Froggatt, who convinced the government to ban any further releases of the toads, but he didn't anticipate the stupidity of Queensland's then Premier and Minister for Agriculture, Joseph Lyons, who ended up becoming Prime Minister and overturned the ban so he could do his part for destroying as many of our native wildlife as possible. The toads travel at a rate of around 40 kilometres per year, and there are still a few areas of Australia that aren't yet infested with these poisonous amphibians. Taking a look under the water, immediately we are greeted by water boatmen and glass shrimp, happily swimming through the mid-water column and eating algae from the rocks and plant debris. We also get a glimpse at some long-armed shrimp hanging out under the fallen branches. There were also lots of Pacific blue eyes, frantically darting around in the shallow water. The male blue eyes are the ones with the yellow, black, red, and white fins, and we can see the females swimming alongside them. The females are much less colourful, but you can see their beautiful blue eyes as they shine in the sunlight. There are a lot of blue eyes in this really shallow little pool. Don't the male's fins look spectacular? We can also see a little gudgeon hiding behind one of the rocks off in the background. It was strange to see this tree managing to somehow survive growing out of the crack in this rock. In the fast-flowing water amongst the long green strands of what appear to be a type of underwater moss were some fish I couldn't get a good enough look at. They look a bit like smelt, but they could also be a galaxis, which I'm hoping they are because I've never seen them in the wild before. With only this tiny glimpse, I can't say for certain what they are. Both are amazing native fish, and if you'd like to learn more about the smelt, check out my last video where I found thousands of the most beautiful smelt I have ever seen. This was a pretty magical sight. Looking at the way the green plant moved about in the fast-flowing water. I saw lots of these gelatinous balls on the rocks. Perhaps someone can identify these and leave a comment below. Travelling further down the river, it widened significantly, and in the deep water, I could see nests made by some fish, potentially a large eel-tailed catfish, but we couldn't find a way down there, so we continued further south. The next river was exceptionally beautiful and very clear. It was filled with blue eyes, Marjorie's hardy heads, crimson-spotted rainbow fish, and smelt. There was lots of algae in this water, and it had a very clear blue colour to it as well. Howdy. It's really important that if you see some rocks like this, that you put them back, or at least knock them over, because these rocks are home to loads of little animals like crayfish and shrimps that live under them and use them as their homes. So it's really important to ensure these animals have a home and not to stack rocks like this. There's so many animals that benefit from not having their homes destroyed, and it's a really easy fix. Just knock over any of those structures that you find. There are so many blue eyes in this pool, and we even saw a Mary River cod, but they are so hard to track down and so hard to film because of how fast moving they are, and they live in the deeper water. So we haven't managed to capture it on film, but I'm gonna try my best to try and find one. That's why we've come to the Mary River, to try and find the Mary River cod, which are much like the Murray River cod, except they live up here in the Mary River catchment, and they're much rarer and harder to spot. They've become much rarer due to their habitat being destroyed, having other noxious fish to compete with, lots of agriculture that's polluted the water. So I really hope we can capture one on film, because they're a really rare and cool fish. But just look in the water here, there's so many blue eyes, and they're really pretty ones. Let's try and capture some of them on camera. The Mary River cod have also suffered greatly from people catching and killing them as well. This spot was so beautiful. There are some more Pacific blue eyes swimming in front of the camera, and Pacific blue eyes are found along the east coast of Australia, from southern coast of New South Wales to the Cape York Peninsula at the top of Queensland. They can tolerate not only fresh water, but also brackish to fully marine conditions as well. They were first described all the way back in 1866. They can be found in very small to very large schools, sometimes having several hundred blue eyes swimming alongside each other. They will also school with other species of fish too. When they perceive a threat, the school will dart off in random directions to try and confuse predators. Blue eyes can breed when they're about 6 months old and only live for about 2 years in the wild. Blue eyes are great for keeping down mosquitoes, as their diet mainly consists of insects that land in the water. So if you have a pond, blue eyes are a great way of keeping mosquitoes under control. I love seeing those males flash their fins to us as they swim by the camera lens and see their reflection. What a spectacular place. There's lots of bees flying around, getting drinks by the water. I hope you enjoyed coming along on this adventure and learning about all these cool creatures. Stay subscribed because the part 2 of the Merry River expedition is coming out soon. So until next time, keep it murky.